Now, you might call yourself a massive horror fanatic, but let me tell you a quick story. You've not seen a film like Slapface 2021. Subscribers of Shudder are in for a treat from the 3rd of February. Joining me today is a person who is an Emmy winner. He's an actor, producer, director, writer, and he's featured in some hit TV series shows, which include Days of Our Lives, Teen Wolf. He's also featured in films including The Call and Son of the South. Naturally, I'm talking about the talented Mike Manning. Greetings, Mike. How are you today?
Good, Peter. I'm better now with that intro. I'm going to bring you everywhere.
I
Thank
hope
you.
so. You are very talented. And obviously, within Slapface 2021, a couple of things to add. You do serve as a leading actor in this film, and you are a producer in this film. And I must lift my glass to you because as of this morning, Rotten Tomatoes are deeming this a 100% score, which is an absolute achievement. So that's got to make your day even more. And I have to ask, are you a lover of horror films? And if so, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, well, thank you for all of that. I'm thrilled that Rotten Tomatoes sees in the film what we have, always seen and tried to, put on screen, and are showing us the love. I do love horror films. I grew up. I enjoy being scared, and I think that people in general, that's why horror is so popular, is that people go to the theater to feel something. And in horror, you feel scared. You have the hair on your arm stand up. You have the whispers in your ear. And I think that, we try to do that with Slapface. We tried to stay loyal to the genre, but also to have some other fun elements in there and some, maybe, some psychological messages in there that I hope audiences will take away. Growing up, I loved, when I was younger, I loved old school practical effects like, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think when I was younger, I saw The Sixth Sense, and that movie stuck with me as being my favorite film that sort of messed me up for a while. I thought I saw ghosts everywhere. And then more recently, I really like, psychological moments that have those quiet moments that really let you sit in that tension, sort of like Hereditary or A Quiet Place or The Witch, that sort of thing. I also love fantastical movies. I love like Babadook, and I love,
Yeah.
Stories that comment on real life, but they're using the genre of horror, sci-fi, whatever it is, to sort of tell that story.
Very good. You, sir, have good taste in films. That's actually quite good to see. And what attracted you to play this character? So you play a character called Tom, and you're an older brother. What attracted you to play this particular role in this horror film?
Yeah, I think there's something nice about the simplicity of an older brother just doing the best he can, despite the odds stacked against them. I think that, not only are they poor, and Tom has a job and a drinking problem that he probably had before the death of their parents,
Mm.
but then their parents die, and Tom is thrust into this role of adulthood and parenthood, and he doesn't have any of the tools. He wasn't given this roadmap. He didn't have that period to adjust. When somebody finds out they're going to be a parent, there's sort of this like psychological shift. And
Yep.
and Tom just woke up one day, and he's now the guardian of this 12-year-old boy, and
Yep.
he's doing the best he can. And so I think that there was something beautiful in that. I love what the character says about, masculinity, sometimes toxic masculinity, and the lack of vulnerability, and even the game of Slapface,
Yes.
the namesake of the movie.
Yeah.
When he's literally slapping his little brother across the face,
Mm.
in his mind, it's not abuse. In his mind, it's a form of discipline and a form of connection, and he thinks that he's doing the right thing in preventing his little brother from being a troublemaker and getting into, more problems.
Yeah.
And in my mind, Tom inherited that from his father, and that was
Yeah.
how his father disciplined them. So there was something, beautiful about the simplicity of the character,
Mm.
on the surface, but then also everything that was going on underneath emotionally when he's trying to just get through life and be a good
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have any sort of inspiration in order to mold and achieve this character? I mean, your character has moments that I literally was biting my fingernails. It's quite a little, you have moments basically that are very, very dark. So I guess what I'm sort of wanting to know is, was there any inspiration for this character, and how did you psych yourself up for some of those more tense and dark moments that you deliver very well on the big screen?
Thank you. Honestly, without getting too much into it, the idea of alcoholism and sort of anger and I have had people close to me that I've loved, still love, that have dealt with those issues, and so I did have a bit of real life to sort of pull from, in some of those, you know, darker moments. And also I think that those dark moments and the performance in itself just came from a trust, that I had with Jeremiah Kipp, our director. The script, a lot of the story is based on his own life, growing up with his grandparents, living next to the woods, and not, sort of having, like, reading Grimm's fairy tales and watching, a lot of these like older horror films. His mind would wander, and he would sort of live in this fantasy world, and he was just, throughout this whole process, one of the things I love about the script and the story and working with Jeremiah is he was just such a deep well to sort of pull from, in terms of, like, Jeremiah, what do you think Tom is feeling here? What is this and what is that? And every time I would ask him these questions, he would give me so much to work with.
Awesome.
And also Lucas,
Yeah.
August Maturo, this in the same way. There was just such a level of trust and vulnerability that, that some of, like you said, some of my favorite moments in the film are not necessarily moments that are on the page,
Yeah.
but moments that we found just working together and just sort of being in it, with each other.
Yeah, it's tremendous. And you've mentioned August Matero, and I'm going to leap into another question relating to him. So you guys play brothers in this film. You're his older brother in the film. It's very convincing that you guys are brothers, to the point that I had to look up IMDb. Is there actually a connection or not? Because the relationship, and I'm not making this up, the relationship is actually really, really convincing. It's obviously very tense. Out of curiosity, did you guys do anything together, whether it's on set or maybe you went out and got a burger after hours? I don't know. Did you guys do anything to try and make that relationship as real as possible? Because, like I said, highly convincing, and kudos to both you and August. But yeah, I was just curious, did you do anything to try and perfect that and work on that for the screen?
Yeah, I think we lucked out with August. I remember early on in the process, I had my list of choices for Lucas, and then our casting director had her list of choices, Carolyn Sinclair, and then our Jeremiah Kipp made his list of choices, and August Maturo was at the top of all of our lists. And so I was like, man, given his training with the Disney Channel, and I sort of got my start on the Disney Channel with Cloud9 and with Crash and Bernstein, and so I understood sort of the work ethic that involves being a Disney actor. And then I also loved the fact that he had done The Nun and sort of understood the horror genre. So we lucked out with him. An interesting thing about this movie, and one of my favorite aspects of it, is that we lived on set half the time. Wow. So we filmed at this place called Willow Lakes in upstate New York, and there were the series of cabins. And so I actually would sleep in the bed that was Tom's bed. I would wake up in the morning and make my coffee in the coffee maker that was Tom's coffee maker.
That's brilliant.
And it really helped me stay in the character while I was a producer dealing with all these other things, trying to just stay in it as an actor. And then August and his mom, they had a cabin that was maybe a 2-minute walk across the lake. And so he got to stay there and sort of be next to the woods, and we would definitely hang out when we weren't shooting. The very first day, I'm a big comic book fan, and I'm sitting on the couch, and we're just getting to know each other. I'm like, hey man, how are you? Like, what do you like? What do you this? And I was like, oh yeah, I really like comic books. And he goes, hold on, I'll be right back. And he runs away, and he runs back, and he has a notebook, and he opens it, and he shows me a comic that he's creating. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, you're a 12-year-old. You're a 12-year-old and you're writing your own comic book. Like, we're gonna be friends.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's tremendous. And that does explain a lot more about what we see in this film. And you mentioned about some of the sleeping arrangements on set, the fact that you slept, you know, on scene and on set. What was the biggest, was there any other big challenges on the film? I mean, you know, was there any sort of challenges? I mean, obviously the film was made during, you know, your pandemic and you got COVID hoopla. But what was the biggest challenge you had while making this film? What was the biggest hurdle?
I think the biggest hurdle, I definitely lost years of my life. I definitely didn't sleep for a month, but
Oh,
but it was, you know, it was great because we all came at it from this teamwork mentality. Um, and I think at a certain point, after a few days, even, I just sort of surrendered to the process and surrendered to, okay, I have to balance all of this. There's nobody else that's going to do some of these producing things that I have to do. There's nobody else that's going to be this character. So I have to do both. I have no choice. I'm
yeah.
just going to surrender to whatever happens. And I'll give you an example. So there was one day where the 15 pass crew van gets stuck in the mud. We're driving to a location and it gets stuck in the mud and everybody's there. August is there in the back and we're stuck. And I sent everybody back to set and I was like, okay, we have to rearrange the schedule. I'm going to send everybody back to set. Like we have to stay on schedule. And so I'm sitting there digging in the mud on my hands and knees, digging like the mud away from the tire, trying to get this van loose. A random neighbor sees me and pulls out a tractor that he owned and helped me pull the van out. So he was like, God bless him. And so I finally get back to set 20 minutes later and there's mud under my fingernails, on my face, on my clothes. And they're like, Mike, you have to shoot in 15 minutes to stay on schedule. We have to go. We have to shoot this scene. And I remember going in the bathroom and I started washing my hands and I stopped and I looked in the mirror and I was like, you know what? I just have to take the scene from where I am. I said, Tom is overwhelmed. Tom is tired. Tom has a construction job. Tom gets dirty. So I'm Tom right now. And it was the scene where I discovered the bullet hole in the wall and confront Lucas about it. Tom confronts Lucas, and in the scene, there's some violence and there's some anger there. But then halfway through the scene, I just grab him and I hug him and I just hold him, and that wasn't written. But at that moment, me as Mike really needed a hug, and me as Tom really needed a hug, and I just like held him. And that's actually one of my favorite moments in the movie. And that was just because I was like, you know what, I can't think about it. I just have to get the scene done, and whatever happens, happens. And I trusted everybody. They trusted me, and I think we got some cool moments out of it.
You definitely did. That I can definitely assure you of. I know your time today is very, very precious. I've really enjoyed hearing about all this film. Now, if I give you a quick little summary and close of one opportunity that I'm going to give you, because I've probably got maybe 30 seconds left. What do you want to tell the people of Australia? Why should they subscribe to Shudder and watch this film? The floor is yours. You've got 20 to 30 seconds. What does your heart want to tell the people who are listening right here, right now?
Number one, I love Australia. I love Australia. I'm a huge scuba diver, and so I love Australia. I think that this movie will scare you and it will make you feel something. And those are good reasons to go see a movie.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Manning, thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the very, very best. And I'm very confident we're going to see more and more of you on the big screen. Once again, Slapface on February the 3rd. Check it out. I enjoyed it. The people of Australia are in for a treat. All the best. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Peter. This was awesome.